If there's something that has become part and parcel and integral to any successful marketing right now, it's ethics. I think a lot of us, if not all of us, know that to be operating and delivering ethical products, services, branding, and messages is really the key to successful business going forward and to, in essence, sustainable and responsible business. These are some of the key phrases that we're going to be exploring as we go through this session. And this is really about ethical marketing made simple because as a concept, ethical marketing is absolutely simple. It is about building trust through loyalty, long-term success, by tending to what we call responsible marketing. Now, why does ethical marketing matter? And let's keep this really, really straightforward because it isn't rocket science. It is something that is just doing good business. So why does it matter? Well, our customers are demanding transparency, they're demanding fairness, and they're demanding accountability and evidence of good ethical behavior from our brands, our categories, our products, our services, and in fact, every single interaction that we do. If we're in a regulated industry, so pharmaceuticals, telecoms, financial services, and the like, then our regulatory bodies are enforcing stricter and stricter advertising and data privacy laws and really tightening up on good behavior. So, good marketing practice. And that is at the core of everything that we're going to be focusing on here. Brands that prioritize ethical marketing will be seeing higher customer loyalty and, in essence, really establishing a much stronger reputation versus their competition. And of course, this makes sense. And if you think about the kind of products and services that you buy as a consumer, then I'm sure right now you are looking at a broader perspective rather than just the features and the benefits of a product or the cost of that service. You're looking more deeply into, well, who are the people behind these products and services? What do they stand for? What's their purpose? And can I find evidence to back that up? Great example, as always, is Patagonia's commitment to sustainability. I mean, in many ways, they've turned marketing into a movement, something far greater than just the product that they offer, but also far greater in some ways than themselves. They've actually become true ambassadors and thought leaders for ethical, sustainable marketing. So I guess as you listen to this and you start to reflect on where you are and where your organization is, it's an opportunity to go a little more deeply into the why. Why are we here? Why are we doing what we do? Could we become more ethical? Could we become more responsible? Could we really take accountability for a stronger, more purpose-driven position within our marketplace? So some little steps that you might want to take is initially conducting a marketing ethics audit and see if your messages align with your customers' values. See if they look and feel right in this emerging marketplace. And then establish some guideline principles where you can bring ethics and, of course, the transparency that comes with that into all of your campaigns and your activities. Because it's one of those things that, you can't just say you're doing, you have to evidence that you are doing. So it is a strategy, it is a mindset, but it's also a series and set of behaviors. And that is something that we'll cover a little bit later. So, what are the core principles of ethical marketing? Well, transparency is right at the core here. Open, honest communication with every customer and, in fact, every stakeholder that you have, both internally in the organization, around your organization, your suppliers, your agencies, and those kinds of people and organizations. And then, of course, more broadly out into the big wide world as you start to engage openly and honestly with your customers. Authenticity, another key ingredient to ethical marketing. Aligning your brand actions with your brand messages, having a real respect for privacy, using your customers' data ethically, not doing the wrong thing, but always having a drive towards doing the right thing. Social responsibility, another thing about contributing positively to society, the world, the communities, the people, and again, this word stakeholders around us, really, really key if we're going to be ethical marketers. and inclusivity and diversity, representing and respecting all audiences, even if they don't happen to be your core target audience, having respect and representing their attitudes, their perspectives, and their position in relation to your brand is absolutely key. So the steps you can take to again begin that start of the journey are draft a marketing ethics policy to guide decision making. Once you've done your audit, you'll know kind of where you are, and maybe start then to think, well, where could we be? Not always where should we be, but where could we be? As well as where must we be? That's an important one. If you know that there are certain things that really don't feel quite right, they don't resonate with the customers, those will be the things to attend to first. Those are in the must box. If it's both you and they who don't feel you're quite up to the spot right now. And then ensure consistent messaging across all platforms. This isn't something you just do on your product packaging. This isn't just something you say in a sales meeting. This has to proliferate throughout everything that you do. That's true ethical marketing, where the ethics are represented in every single interaction, both online and offline, through people and through the core messaging channels that you use. Now, your transparency here is going to be a foundation for the trust that you're going to be driving and the loyalty that you're going to be driving with your customer interactions. Sprout Social have done a recent survey that say 94% of consumers say transparency drives brand loyalty. In other words, if you have open and honest communications, as far as you commercially can with your customers, they will start to feel loyal towards you. So brands have got to openly disclose product sourcing, pricing, advertising claims, every single thing that you can evidence, you should be evidencing. It's a really, really important thing. So the steps that you might want to take for that is obviously auditing your marketing claims. Make sure they are clear, make sure they are accurate, and make sure you have a reliable source to back them up. We'll talk a little bit later about third-party sources. So if you can get some third-party advocacy for the claims that you're making in terms of their clarity and their accuracy, then so much the better. And there are organizations like the Anti-Greenwash Charter who can help you in that regard. And use behind the scenes content to showcase business practices. I've been advocating this for quite a long time, this whole fly on the wall kind of approach where, people are very, very curious. They have this kind of appetite and thirst for, well, how did they create that? And what's going on? And who are the people behind this story? What are they doing? What do they look like? How do they act and behave? How is their decision making happening? It's both in B2C and B2B organizations that this can become really, really powerful. So consider that as part of that mix. Now, why is authenticity non-negotiable? Why do you have to do this? Well, the key reason is that your customers can spot insincerity instantly. You can. You know when a claim is full of hot air. You know when a marketer has just pushed that messaging or that statement just that little bit too far, and you think, nah, there's no chance. And if you start questioning it, well, that's how your customers are going to be looking at you as well. Stackler have done a research survey which says 86% of people say authenticity is key when deciding what brands to support. 86%. That's almost all of your customers are going to be saying, if you're not authentic, I'm going to your competitor. If you're not authentic, I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to support you. I might purchase once, but don't expect a long-term relationship with me. That's what this is all about. It's really, really important. So an actionable step for this then would be to ensure storytelling, all your narratives reflect real voices, real people, and real values. Don't be making this stuff up. Make sure you're reflecting the reality within your organization. Include real people from your organization in the storytelling. People love to see the faces behind the organization. It's a really key thing to start building this authentic position. And avoid jumping on social movements and trending hashtags and just those topics that are not really genuinely aligned with your overall commitment or journey. Because again, people can spot that. People can see that, oh, well, I know you're just saying that because look, everyone else is. You don't stand for that, you stand for this. So stay in your lane. Doesn't mean you can't explore, doesn't mean you can't innovate, doesn't mean you can't express yourself. But what it means is you need to be very, very clear about how and why you're aligning with anything that is trending in the world. It's not to say you can't do it, but just make sure you're aligning yourself with the right kinds of things, the right kinds of activities and activism and social movements and any of these kind of stories that are happening outside of your organization. The ones to align with are the ones that align with your lane and with your purpose. So by doing this kind of real reflection on how accurately are we advocating these things, how clearly are we communicating our stories in a real sense to back up the overall strategy that we have based around the audit that we've done, that's what's key. So keep things very aligned and very, very clear. Now, as you start to do this, what you will see in terms of putting this into practice is that one of the very, very core things, one of the things that really kind of drives and actually has driven this whole thing of ethical marketing is the ethical use of your customers' data. This will often be the very first thing that people think about when they think of how much they trust you, is how much in the transaction or the trade or the engagement with you are they willing to give to you because they know that you will hold that information, that data, that understanding of them in a true and honest way. It'll be secure, it'll be private, and it'll only be used in such a way that gives them more value, gives more value to the relationship. So AI personalization, particularly, of course, is coming through, and we're all looking to use AI to personalize our messages and to use the data really creatively. But it has to be balanced with the rights of your customer to privacy. So your ethical challenges here are data collection, algorithmic bias, and user consent, because you need to make sure that everything you've collected is being collected and held securely and will be used to give more value to your customer. And if you're using it for your own gains, then there's a big mirror that you need to hold up to yourself and say, hold on a minute, is this as ethical as we could be? So clearly communicate how your customers' data is going to be collected, how it's stored, and how you're going to use it for them. Offer opt-in choices, particularly if you're looking to drive, ultra personalization through things like AI now. So the kind of the stakes, if you like, have been really increased here. The dial is turned up to 10 on this thing. There's going to be a lot of focus on this in the coming years because this is one of those areas where you can fall down, you can really trip. But it's also an area where you can add huge amounts of value to your customer's relationship because of the detail and the depth you can go into using AI, but you have to tread with caution. Now, of course, if you start to do these things, I've kind of hinted at it when I mentioned the anti-greenwash charter, but what is happening here is that we're positioning ourselves really authentically, really genuinely in a position so that we avoid greenwash. Now, greenwash is one of those things that you need to be very mindful of. It is where you will find a backlash based around misleading claims about your product or services, environmental credentials, let's say. So if it is that you're claiming, we are the most ethical organization, or this is the most eco packaging, or this is, and the list goes on, then you have to have claims that are backed up and substantiated with data, with information, with research, and ideally with third-party certification. So if you can get that badge, that stamp of approval from a certified third party, then you have, or an accredited third party rather, then you have the certification that will back up and will avoid greenwashing because you always can counter any claims that come against you. And of course, if you're vague, if you're a little bit woolly and wishy-washy about what you're saying, if you're not absolutely clear and transparent, i.e. ethical, then you could be accused of greenwashing. And that is something that we want to avoid. So avoiding generic terms like eco-friendly or green without showing hard evidence is not advisable. So that is what you need to do. Ethical marketing encompasses a social element, but it also encompasses an environmental element as well, which is really important to consider as we look into this in more detail and more depth. So it's a bit about data. It's a little bit about ethics. It's a little bit about principles of doing wholesome business. It's a bit about, constantly auditing. It is all of these things. This is ethical marketing. It is doing the right thing for your customer and for your organization. And nothing that I've shared with you so far really should come as any surprise. It should be absolutely obvious. It should be that we've been doing this forever. But of course, most of us haven't. And that's where this is starting to really raise its head and sort out the organizations and split out the organizations who are doing it from those who aren't. And so let's be in that first category, the ones who are really taking this responsibly. And of course, it becomes really ever more important when we are thinking about those broader stakeholders. So, if we're thinking about how our agencies then reflect our brand in the things that they recommend to us, or if they're doing work on our behalf, the fact is that they are behaving and operating ethically as well. So, it's about alignment of those things. And it's never become more obvious than if we're doing influencer marketing, because responsible, ethical influencers have to be part of our brand structure. So if you're using influencers, this is not the time to say, I'm just going to use that influencer because they've got great reach, because they're super famous and they're worth investing with. That's not the only sole reason now for an influencer marketing decision. You need to be looking for influencers, micro or macro, however you're working at the moment, and they need to be aligned with your ethical marketing stance. If you are not 100% confident, look for somebody else. It really is that important right now. 61% of consumers trust recommendations from influencers over brands advertising. Whether you think it's 60%, 70%, 50%, it's a big, big number. So if you are doing this stuff properly, if you're doing this stuff with your influencers and those who are advocating your products and services, if you're doing this in an ethical way and they are aligned, you can have some incredible gains here commercially. But of course, the risks are, and we've seen a lot of these in the media over recent years, the risks from an ethical perspective that can seriously damage your brand are very, very significant indeed. Misleading endorsements, scandals around the influencer's behavior, for example, undisclosed sponsorships where you're trying to do something kind of under the radar and it will come out. This is not about what can I get away with. This is, I shouldn't be doing this in the first place. So there's a real honesty here because, the ASA will come after you. The Advertising Standards Authority will and have done. They find influencers in the UK for not correctly labeling sponsored content. It is happening and it will happen. Please don't be in that category. Please don't be one of their examples for people who got this wrong. So actionable steps are to ensure that anybody who is influencing or advocating is disclosing any kind of partnership, be it paid or otherwise, really clearly. And vet your influencers, your advocates, those who are doing marketing on your behalf, even your agencies, for alignment with your brand ethics before you even start to collaborate with them. It's really important. This is so important and too important to leave to chance. Another element, again, building on that earlier AI stuff that we were talking about, is avoiding bias and discrimination. This is, again, another really key part and has become over the last couple of years particularly something that is very, very highly regarded in terms of ethical marketing or ethical branding organizations. AI driven marketing particularly can lead to unintentionally reinforcing racial, gender or economic biases. You've got to be super, super clear about how you're going to be using AI and how you're going to be checking and monitoring for bias before it becomes a thing outside of your organization. I mean, a well-documented example was Amazon scrapped its AI hiring tool because it discriminated against female candidates. And of course, these biases are all inherently built into the language models that we're using for our AI decision making and algorithm selection. So it's really important to regularly audit any kind of AI-driven campaigns or content creation or data holding or analysis. If you're drawing inference from a particular piece of insight analysis that you've given AI to look deeply into, and I'm not saying don't do it, it's hugely powerful. I'm saying do it, but watch out for unintended bias. When you look and evaluate from the insights that the AI gives you, make sure that you are really, really thinking broadly from every stakeholder's perspective. Look at this evaluation, look at the perspective from everybody's perspective, everybody's, sit in everybody's shoes or stand in everybody's shoes rather, and look at the data, look at what your judgments are and see how that feels from their perspective, because that's super important. And use inclusive data sets to train your AI models. As you start to see and feel improvements being made, go with it. Make sure you're consistently requiring your AI to respond in the most inclusive way. And again, having an intention, having a plan for continuous improvement is far, far more effective than saying, oh, we'll do it tomorrow, or oh, it doesn't really matter. At least if you've got a plan, even if challenged, you can say, look, we know we're not perfect with this one, but we are doing continuous improvement and here's our project. So again, that in itself is more ethical and honest and open and transparent. So have those plans, have those logs for continuous improvement available at all times. And it is about aligning with the values that we see emerging from society. That particular diversity and inclusion one is something that over the last, probably 3 to 5 years, we've seen really accelerate for all the right reasons. Brands that stand for social issues typically see stronger emotional connection with their customers. We've seen this play out through a lot of the big kind of multinational, international brands. Ben and Jerry's is a really sort of well-documented example that actively supports racial justice initiatives and therefore boosts its brand loyalty in maybe underrepresented communities. And for them, that is a hugely powerful element of their brand strategy. So maybe think about, could you partner with authentic social impact organizations, ones not in your sector, but that are making a real difference to certain, maybe underrepresented, maybe not. I mean, again, it's very much down to personal choice and down to your brand values and position. But think about organizations that you might be able to partner with or represent or support. And ensure actions match public statements to avoid performative activism. You've got to say those words very carefully. Avoiding performative activism. In other words, where you claim something, you say something, but actually your behaviors and your actions don't actually back it up. And again, then it looks like, well, they're just sponsoring that just so that it aligns well with their brand position, but they never do anything. They're never actively involved. So it is a proper commitment. It's not just about parting with money and saying, hey, we sponsor those guys. So now we're in that kind of club and now we can use those things. It's way, way deeper. It's way, way more than that. So it's proper, real commitment. And it plays out as we go through it feels like going through our marketing mix here. And of course, this is what we're doing. We're seeing if ethics in all of our activities, not just our promotions and our products and the way that we communicate, but some of the more kind of product related things like ethical pricing and fairness. I mean, our pricing strategies for how much we charge for the value that we bring to our customers through products and services. Well, those strategies should also be fair, transparent, and again, justifiable. To just say, oh, well, we're going to discount for this particular reason, or that, oh, well, we just charge that amount for this particular product because, we see that's how much it costs us, and we always put this extra margin on the top because we need to make a profit. There's the price. Is that fair? Is that fair for the amount of value that's being added? If you haven't used or haven't thought about or haven't even become aware of the idea of value-based pricing, I would encourage you to go deeper into that. It's a really interesting concept that is very much at the heart of ethical marketing when it comes to the price points that you charge for the value that you bring to your customers. It allows you to think in a very different way, a more nuanced way, a more sophisticated way about how you price. And of course, because it's based on the value that your customer perceives, is very fair, it's very honest, and it potentially could be quite transparent. So you can then start to communicate value very clearly rather than just cost. So leading by, as often many marketers and salespeople do, leading by, well, we can undercut the cost of or the price of this product versus the competition, and you'll want to do business with us. It's trading on a whole different set of values, a whole different level of understanding and engagement. It's so much deeper. Yes, if you just want to do the little transaction and you don't really care about the customer relationship, carry on in the old way. I'd encourage you to do that because your competitor is going to steal a lead and then you're going to wake up. Value-based pricing is all about waking up to the fact that actually why you're in business, actually why you're in this customer relationship is to provide and serve more value and then price for that value. In other words, you get a return from that value in an appropriate way. It is honest, it is ethical, and it is true. And it allows us then to really kind of look at all of this stuff very holistically. I mean, if we think about all of the people that we touch, they will have a different perception of value. And this one's really important because it kind of starts to tie in our understanding as a marketer, as a business owner, as a salesperson, business developer, our understanding of our customer in a true sense of the word. So not just going in with, hey, we've got this new product that you are going to find really useful to solve your problem, but it's actually going in at a much more relationship, deep level. And yes, there's a product or a service which can help you do your daily activity, but we're actually working on a much higher level of value here. And by doing that, we can become much more inclusive. We can become much more diverse. And representation really does matter. Customers want to see themselves reflected personally in the advertising, in the marketing, in the conversation, so that they really do feel like you're talking to them on a one-to-one basis. I've already mentioned personalization and how you can use AI carefully and hopefully in an unbiased way to deliver ethical marketing and sales initiatives. But if you actually conduct a diversity audit of all of your marketing materials versus, and plot this versus all of the groups, all of the persona types, if you like, all of the maybe underrepresented groups that you could give value to, then you can develop campaigns, you can develop marketing, and maybe even products and services, and maybe even co-creating those in association with these customers, with these prospects, with these stakeholders, hand in hand. Now, wouldn't that be interesting? Because any of these people, any of these individuals, and we are talking at an individual level, even if you say, well, I don't deal with consumers, I deal with businesses. Well, you don't market to businesses, you market to the people in those businesses. So treat each and every one as a unique individual. Get into their mindset, get into their preferences, understand what they value, and you can then reflect that back to them. And what a great relationship you're building then. Rather than just this transactional thing, you're building a customer lifetime value style of relationship. And how interesting that's going to be, how irresistible that's going to be to your customers. This is, again, as I say, is a new way of trading, a new way of doing business, and it's really, really exciting. But things aren't always going to go right. If you do all of this stuff, sometimes, and sometimes it will, things might not go quite as you expect. Customers, though, expect brands to own mistakes and take corrective action. Even if you do your audits, even if you use AI to go deep into the data and you try with your best endeavors to do everything ethically and correctly and responsibly, some things will go missed. Some people in your organization may not perform to the level that you've set. Sometimes the relationship is soured by, just the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. Things can go wrong. But if you're able and willing to own any mistake and take corrective action and say, yeah, we got this wrong. Yeah, we could do better. Develop a brand crisis response plan with transparency at its core. Yes, you can just roll over and say, hey, we got it wrong, we're so bad, and just try and provide loads of refunds. Or you can just act quickly and genuinely when issues arise. I will almost certainly assure you that if you respond appropriately, honestly, and transparently, deal on a human to human level, it is very, very unlikely that your customer or the journalist or the person who is like really looking to go for you, if you come back to them with an honest, ethical, responsible, and transparent answer and say, hey, I'm sorry, we got this wrong. We didn't perform to the level that you and we expect, but here's our corrective action. This is what we are doing about it right now. How hard is that then to come back and say, well, yes, but they're not going to. They're going to come back to you and say, well, okay, fair dues. Tell us when it's all back up and running, and yeah, we'll have that next meeting. That's how they're going to respond. It's almost impossible as a human being to continually to bash somebody or a brand if they open up and are honest. This level of commercial vulnerability to a point, obviously, but commercial vulnerability is such a strength. And some of the most successful brands on the planet are starting to do that. I mean, Starbucks' rapid response to a racial bias incident happened, and they closed stores for employee training. I mean, taking a commercial hit because of something they identified that actually we were challenged, we did get it wrong, we weren't as ethically aware as we thought. And okay, right, we're going to make sure everybody understands how to roll this out. It's not our whole brand, it's just a small subset, but it's critical. And it's important that we get everybody on board and delivering to the right kind of level for the future. And of course, by doing that, what they've done is they've set a higher and higher and higher sort of benchmark, if you like, in terms of their ethical marketing, because now we expect them to respond in a similar way next time. And of course, because they know it's commercially sound and the right thing to do, that's exactly what they'll do. So it begins to set up a whole range of ways of behaving that enable you to integrate this into your strategies. So ethical marketing is part of your strategy. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, it's there as an opportunity. And if you embrace it, well, ethical brands are seen to be outperforming their competitors financially and through reputation. I mean, Unilever, for example, and all its multiple brands, its sustainable brands are growing 50% faster than the rest of the business. You know, this is ethical marketing really given a real push. And it works. It just works. So, actionable steps that you could take is aligning your key performance indicators that you're set every month or that you're tracking. Align those with ethical success metrics like trust and reputation, as well as commercial. You know, if you're targeted because you happen to be in an organization that's all about the numbers, start to bring in some numbers that are around trust and reputation. Make those things as scientific as the commercials, as scientific as the financial measures that you have and that you value and you see as a measure of success. Ethical success matters. It really does. And then you can use ethical marketing as a differentiator. And particularly if you're in very competitive markets where a lot of stuff is commoditized. So your business and your products and their products are all very, very similar as you look across your competitors. Ethical marketing is a key differentiator, and this will have financial benefit to you as well. And it's not just me saying it. There are countless examples now of big, successful brands who are literally accelerating onwards. I mean, a lot of the big names that you go and research, and I would suggest you do some research into ethical marketing case studies because there are many, and you will almost certainly find some in or around your industry or the sectors that you serve. And so the key takeaway really from this and these case studies of these other organizations that are probably likely to be a little bit further ahead of you in your journey, but they are great examples to follow. Their ethical marketing is already, and probably you may well be their customers too. It's building trust with you and other customers. It's giving a longevity to the relationship. And I often find myself using the phrase customer lifetime value, CLV. It will increase the longevity of that customer's lifetime value with you and for them too. What a great way to build a relationship. Ethical marketing at the core. And of course, then people start to talk. If you want to spread your word through word of mouth and you don't have unlimited budgets to be spending to do that, use these happy customers, use these loyal customers, the ones who get the fact that you're on this journey to becoming an even more ethical brand, and you will find customer advocacy supercharges your marketing efforts. So it's a really, really interesting thing to be integrating with your marketing plans. So there's a bit of an ethical marketing roadmap, and it is really 6 steps that will get you integrating ethics within your current activities. We're not looking to put this on the side, it's a little add-on. No, this is something that goes throughout everything you're already doing. So it's a little checklist that you can add to your current kind of tactical and strategic planning activities. So step 1, define your brand's core ethical values. What do you stand for? What do you want to stand for? Step 2, align all marketing campaigns with these principles. Be open, honest, and brutal with what you see in terms of how well you're performing in your messaging against those core values. Step 3, train your teams across the business in ethical best practices. This is everybody, both customer facing, but also internal as well, because you will see things proliferating across the organization through multiple disciplines. And everybody really is a marketer in your organization. Even if they don't have marketing in their job description, they are going to be marketing. They're going to be talking family, friends, colleagues, others in the world. So train everybody about your core ethical values. Step 4, set up transparency and accountability processes. That's important. Remember those KPIs. That will start to guide and almost give ethics a voice, if you like, in the management meetings. Give ethics a voice in the decision making as you start to move this forward. Step 5, assign an ethical marketing officer to oversee responsible messaging. There's a thought. Might not be a full-time role, probably won't be a full-time role, could be you. But it could also be somebody else who comes in and maybe is a little bit critical or cynical of how you're doing this stuff. That would be an interesting position to have, wouldn't it? Maybe this is a part-time kind of advisory sort of role from a strategic level. They'll oversee those key performance indicators against those core ethical values and maybe report back to you the top 3 things that you could be doing next month to make some steps forward. What a lovely strategic role for that person to be doing the right thing. Maybe you already know that person, or maybe it's part of an invitation that you put into the business when you start to roll this out, that you're looking for somebody to support you in this way. That could get interesting too. And the final step 6 is review your campaigns regularly for alignment and ethical goals. So maybe setting up a little team, including that ethical marketing officer, probably you as a representative of the marketing side of things. How interesting that will be to regularly review your campaigns against the KPIs, maybe produce a dashboard, and then maybe every quarter or every 6 months, revisit those brand core ethical values and see how you're reporting back, see how you're feeling, see how you're delivering against your claims. The ethical marketing roadmap. So the key takeaways, ethical marketing is absolute essential for your trust and success in your relationships with your customers. It is about building the brand, but it's also about that tactical loyalty as well. People will come to you because responsible brands attract more loyal customers. It is just the way of the world. It's becoming a universal marketing law now. Small changes lead to long-term impact. This is about incremental gains. I've said there a number of times, it's not about kind of revolution, it's an evolution of what you're already doing. So audit your current marketing activities for transparency, fairness, and inclusivity. And implement one ethical improvement today and then measure its impact. It is about those little incremental steps. Just one thing improved today, and maybe tomorrow, and maybe the next day. Tiny, tiny little steps in the right direction. But remember, it's all about the evidence and documentation. You don't just do this, you need to log it as well, because if and when challenged, you can say, here's our roadmap, here's our journey, and here's how we are becoming a more ethical brand and a more ethical business for you, the customer, for the value that you need from us. And the long-term relationship that we want to have with you. And that is ethical marketing made simple.